welcome back to Cottage Tech. You know, nothing beats a nice quiet morning like this. Sitting out on the dock in a Muskoka chair, staring at the old Muskoka TV. And of course, nothing beats a nice cup of coffee when you're doing it. Of course, we all know to get a good cup of coffee, obviously, of course, you buy whole bean coffee and you grind it that morning when you make a pot of coffee. But you know, at Cottage Tech, you know we like to take it the next level. I go one further than that. I don't buy just good whole bean coffee. I buy green whole bean coffee, and then I roast it myself the day before. And then I grind the beans fresh in the morning when I want to make a pot of coffee. Nothing beats being able to control your own roast as well as your own grind. In fact, you won't believe the roaster that I use. Why don't we head up to the deck and get out the old Cottage Tech workbench, and I'll show you how to roast your own coffee at the cottage. You're going to love this. Well, we're back at the old Cottage Tech workbench again. This time we're going to roast coffee. I need a few things. First off, here's the beans. These are green coffee beans. They actually look a little on the small side, but they do swell up when they roast, so they end up being a little bit bigger. They really are green, and funny thing is, they don't even smell like coffee. They smell kind of bitter. These beans are courtesy of Ashanti Coffee Roastery. They have a cafe up in Elora, Ontario, and the people that own Ashanti, they own a coffee plantation in, I believe it's in Zimbabwe, in Africa. And they grow the coffee there. They bring it over to Canada as green beans, and then they roast the beans up at their cafe. They've got, I think, about 3 cafes around, and they make really, really good coffee. So that's where these beans are from. These are from the Ashanti Coffee Roastery, and I want to thank them for helping us out here. I got a few other things. I got a measuring cup so I can measure the amount of beans I want to put in. I want to do just over half a cup per batch. That's perfect for my roaster. It's also the right amount to grind tomorrow morning for a nice big pot of coffee. It's, I think, a 12-14 cup drip coffee maker. I've got a bowl here. This is going to be for catching the chaff as the coffee roasts. It blows off lots of chaff. This is for catching it. And I've got just a cookie sheet here. That's to dump the coffee beans out. You want to cool the coffee beans off after they've roasted. They'll continue roasting as long as they stay hot. So you want to cool the beans once you get to your preferred roast. And that's what the cookie sheet is for. I'll just dump them out on the cookie sheet to cool them off. Now my coffee roaster. I told you you're going to love it. It's not some fancy highfalutin $1,000 made in Italy custom designed coffee roasting machine that's specially imported at great cost and effort and expense. No siree. This one, it's cheap. In fact, yep, there it is, folks. It's actually a popcorn popper. This one here is a popcorn pumper. Today it's going to be the coffee pumper. Quick tip, if you do use popcorn popper, give it a good clean out. You don't want your coffee tasting like Orville Red & Butters, and you also don't want your popcorn tasting like Turkish blend or French roast either. So give your popcorn popper a good clean out before you use it for roasting coffee. This one here I use exclusively for roasting coffee. I don't use this one for doing popcorn anymore. These things, by the way, you can get them so cheap in garage sales and thrift stores all over the place. You can probably pick one up for under 50 cents. I wouldn't pay more than $1 for one. And some of them vary as well. Some of them don't get quite as hot as others. This one works pretty good. I'd like it if it was a little bit hotter, but it works pretty good. It does the job. It'll roast coffee. They run about 450 degrees, and that's what you need. You also, by the way, you want to make sure that you don't run extension cords. An extension cord's going to make the popcorn popper run a little bit cooler, and it may not roast. So if you're trying it and you're on an extension cord or on a long circuit, try plugging it in somewhere else. Okay, so let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to measure out. I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do about 3/4 of a cup of beans, and we just popped them in the popper there, and we're going to pop with the lid on. We want to keep as much heat in there as possible, so we're going to run with the lid on. Once we get up there, we can open up the port on the top to be able to look inside to monitor, see how our roast is going, so we can see what we're doing. But we're going to keep this closed up most of the time. Now, I'm going to put a bowl here. Sometimes, depending on the popcorn popper you use, sometimes you're going to get an awful lot of smoke, so try not to do this indoors. I usually try whenever I can to do it outside. Just makes it easier. You're also going to get a lot of what they call chaff blowing off the coffee beans. So I put a bowl there to kind of catch that, to keep that a little bit subdued. If I do have to roast inside, I usually just put this next to the sink and have the chute pointing into the sink, so all the chaff just blows into the sink and catches it there. But depending on your popcorn popper, you may get lots of smoke as well. So you either got a cheap smoke detector, or you may want to maybe just turn that off for a little while. Don't forget to turn it back on afterwards, though, just until you finish roasting the coffee. Because some of these popcorn poppers, you'll get so much smoke that that smoke detector will go off. So so keep that in mind. Okay, and I guess we're ready to go. What we're looking for, before we turn this on and it gets noisy, what we're looking for is we're looking to get to first crack, which is where the bean starts to release a lot of the moisture inside. The moisture escapes and it causes the bean to crack and split open. And then after that, we're looking for second crack. Second crack is where the bean itself actually starts to break down. So we're certainly going to get the first crack, and once we get the first crack, we're going to monitor our roast and see how we go. Second crack would be a pretty dark roast. First crack, we got to get to at least first crack or it's not even roasted. So we'll see how that works. Before we plug this in, I'm going to move the camera so you guys can see the business end of what's going on here and get a better idea of what's going on inside this, because from what you're seeing there, you ain't seeing too much. So let me change the camera setup, and then I'll get this thing plugged in. We'll make some noise and we'll roast some coffee. Hang on. Okay, I think we're all set now, and let's make some coffee. We'll just plug this in, and I usually leave the lid closed, but as you can see, the beans are swirling around in there. I'm gonna try and zoom the camera in a little bit. That's kind of what we're looking for. See all that chaff blowing around. We're at the 2-minute mark now, just after 2 minutes. We're kind of at the yellow stage now. We go from green to a yellow color, and the yellow is when they start to roast. So we're at the yellow stage now. I'm going to zoom this back out. Hard to see, but we're getting a lot of chaff in the bowl and all over the table. There's first crack. It's like morning popcorn. Past first crack, that would be a very mild roast, a very pale roast. I think what they call like a city roast. I don't remember what the baristas call it, but that's a pretty pale roast. We're going to keep going. We're up to the 6-minute mark now. I don't know if you can hear, but we're at second crack now. Second crack isn't as sharp and as loud as first crack. This is where the coffee bean starts to actually break down. as you can see, that's why the smoke detector goes off. This is quite a dark roast. And you probably can't see it on the camera, but some of these beans are actually kind of sizzling a little bit. And the oils are coming out of them. And they're still smoking a bit. And they're hotter than the dickens. And that's going to be a yummy cup of coffee in the morning. So we'll just let them cool down. And then we'll put them away. Until tomorrow morning, we'll grind them up and make ourselves a nice pot of coffee. So there you go. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for watching.